Despite being the founder of 2 Deca unicorn companies, that is, companies worth over $10 billion, Jack Dorsey was always more interested in attending yoga and sewing classes than being a CEO. In Silicon Valley, bizarre lifestyles are nothing new. Let's not forget that the founder of a company named Apple only ate fruit. But even in San Francisco, Jack Dorsey still manages to stand out. From walking 10 miles to work every day while dating supermodels. From starting the most successful companies in the world, while also winning World's Worst CEO multiple years in a row. Jack Dorsey is a walking contradiction and has a pretty weird life. So let's answer the question, who is Jack Dorsey and what is he doing next, still being relatively young at 45? This is the weird life of Jack Dorsey. When Jack was a teenager, his dream was to work for a dispatching company. Yeah, not a normal teenage dream. So he did some research and found the company that was the world's largest bike messenger app. He wanted to apply but couldn't figure out how. So what does a young Jack Dorsey do? He hacks their servers and sends an email to the CEO explaining how he did it. Then he proposed helping them fix and strengthen the cybersecurity of the company. Well, they hired him on the spot, and next thing he knew, he was on a plane to move to New York. But why did he want to work at a company like this in the first place? Well, he saw the world a bit differently from a young age. Growing up in St. Louis, he would hear the sirens of emergency vehicles. Now, even from a young age, he was fascinated with the technical problem of reducing response times, so people could get help in emergencies and more lives could be saved. And if you're curious, this is exactly what a dispatching service does. His dad also bought him a computer at a very young age, on which he taught himself how to code. So now you can see all the pieces that led to him getting that first job. Now, despite his passion for dispatching, Jack Dorsey would only stay at that first company for 2 years. Then he would get bored and start his own company. More specifically, his companies, jumping from one idea to another, first starting his own dispatch company, then starting a massage company to help programmers with their sore wrists, even getting massage certified. These companies both failed, and he took a little break to go work at someone else's startup as a software engineer. This startup was a podcast directory company called Odeo. Now, unfortunately, before Odeo could even launch, Apple launched their own podcasting app. Yeah, bad timing. So Odeo actually closed up shop before even launching. But this element is important to the story because Dorsey, along with several other Odeo employees, had an opportunity to jump on something new. And that opportunity was the rising tide of social media apps. Along with 3 other co-founders, Dorsey started working on Twitter. As you know, Twitter allows you to broadcast updates. Initially, it was just to your friends, and now it's to the entire internet. Twitter went live in 2006 when Jack famously sent out the first tweet, which has since sold for $2.9 million as an NFT. Twitter was pretty much an instant success, exploding in growth, raising funds twice in the first 2 years. But Dorsey had a tendency to not really care. He'd arrive late to meetings, leave work early to go to yoga or fashion design classes, and after just 2 years, in 2008, he was removed as CEO from his own company. But he was not discouraged. Just a year later, Jack co-founded another company with a glassblower who had problem processing payments for his small business. Thus, Square was born. And after just 3 years in 2012, Square already had 2 million small businesses using its platform. 2 more years later, in 2015, Square went public at a $3 billion valuation, cementing Dorsey as a billionaire if he wasn't already. And in that same year, 2015, Dorsey also returned as a CEO to Twitter. So Dorsey returned to Twitter in 2015, but that didn't mean people liked him. In fact, shortly after he'd win the title of World's Worst CEO, let's take a look at why. Now, if you had to nail down one reason, it seems like Dorsey has a trend with getting bored of rigid routines, but it's probably not just that earned him the title. He also just doesn't care about public relations, which is not exactly good when you're running a public company, and that can affect the stock price. Now, public relations didn't just mean appearances. For example, wearing a nose ring and growing out an extremely long, interesting looking beard, which he did do. He would also often make really strange, staggering announcements, such as saying he was shifting his primary focus to Africa while being the CEO of 2 public companies, making political statements on Myanmar, being hated by both sides of the political spectrum for banning too many people and not banning enough people on Twitter. And from 2015 on, revenues pretty much stagnated, with many commenting that Dorsey was just checked out. So what was his response to all this? Well, he just said he doesn't care about looking bad. And honestly, it hasn't been all bad. Twitter employees probably didn't think he was the world's worst CEO when he gave 1/3 of all of his shares away to employees, just to boost morale. His company Square has also had massive success, both internally and by acquiring food delivery startup Caviar, which later sold to DoorDash for $500 million. Okay, let's shift gears and take a look at Jack's weird daily routine, because he spends 2 hours every single day in meditation. He also takes 3 ice baths a day, cycling from 15 minutes of sauna to 3 minutes of cold plunge. And he's been doing this for almost 10 years. He also walks to work 5 miles each way every single day. All right, why does he do this stuff that seems pretty unpleasant? Well, one of his principles is actually embracing discomfort. In fact, he even calls this his superpower. And he's been doing it since a young age when, as a kid, he forced himself to join a public speaking class to get over being shy. Beyond all this stuff, he also did fasting before it was cool. Not just eating 1 meal a day, but fasting all weekend, every weekend. So yeah, that's 5 meals per week. Now, all this being said, you might think Dorsey's a pretty weird guy, but he still manages to do pretty well with the ladies. His list of romantic affairs is pretty long. He's been spotted with various models, swimsuit models, actresses, ballerinas. And while he definitely does have a type, it seems like for those taller girls, Jack is definitely a jack of all trades. Not being afraid to live the billionaire high life either. He's known to party with Jay-Z and Beyonce, even doing a business venture with Jay-Z. He has a 10 million house in the Seacliff neighborhood of San Francisco. Yes, that's where he walks to work from. So he definitely sets aside some time to enjoy the finer things in life. And as of 2022, he's going to have even more time, because when Elon Musk announced his interest in buying Twitter, that's when Jack removed himself as chairman and CEO, finally cutting ties with the company. As for what he's doing now, well, he's focusing more on Square, which he's now renamed to Block, which I guess is a 3D version of a square, and he's even named himself Blockhead. Interesting move there. And beyond that, he's going all in on crypto, openly supporting Bitcoin since 2019. Jack is actually one of the strongest supporters and hopes that Bitcoin will become the world reserve currency in the future. His company Blocks invested almost $500 million in Bitcoin, and he's worked on building open source Bitcoin mining systems. Now, as of 2022 June, Jack also introduced a new platform called Web 5, which is fully based on Bitcoin, more specifically built on top of it, and combines Web 3 and Web 2, giving you a universal authentication system, which allows you to have personal data separate from any specific app. And if you're curious, the Web 5 comes when you add together Web 3 and Web 2 equals 5. Now, if you're a crypto hater and think this sounds absolutely ridiculous, just keep in mind, it's usually a mistake to bet against anyone who started 2 unicorns. The Tesla short sellers learned that the hard way with Elon Musk. Regardless, now that you know all about Jack's past, one thing is for sure, his future will be an interesting one. And love him or hate him, he knows how to do one thing, that is start a tech business. Hope you'll stick around for more tech stories. I'll catch you in the next one.